I know I haven't introduced the show yet, but I figure we just keep it rolling, I think we don't need to introduce the show, but I'll introduce it anyways, Today we're doing a special episode with the co-owner of the show, Marcus Alvarado, who's been on the show 2 other times, I think, maybe 3.
Yeah, 3.
Maybe 4. I don't know.
Hosted 1 for you.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So those episodes are a different dynamic, though, Same people, different focus. And so we're sitting here going to talk about the People's Tiny House Festival, which is an event that's you probably are going to see the advertisement for it here next, or you've already seen it.
Advertising the hell out of Colorado. It's July 16th through the 17th at the same complex as last year, so the Ranch Events Complex up there in Loveland, Colorado. So.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, they probably just seen that ad literally like a few seconds ago, or they're about to see it in a few seconds.
Yeah.
And now a word from our sponsors. The People's Tiny House Festival is the nation's largest gathering of simple living, featuring van conversions, bus conversions, and tiny houses, of course. Catch the event in Loveland, Colorado, July 16th and 17th at the Ranch Events Complex. Get your tickets at peoplestinyhousefestival.com/tickets. Sheath Underwear has a pouch for the boys. It is everyday underwear for every man. 100% money back on the first pair if you don't like it. Visit sheathunderwear.com and enter the code COSBP20 to get 20% off your order. Recon Marketing is the fastest growing social media agency in Colorado. Recon focuses on becoming an extension of your business while providing social media management, review management, and digital marketing. Recon Marketing, putting you on the radar. Power Toolsafe is revolutionizing tool tracking and protection for everybody. With Power Toolsafe, you can protect the equipment that keeps your business running. Go to powertoolsafe.com and start your new account now and register up to $10,000 in tools for free. Planet Duct offers astronomical air duct cleaning with the most powerful vacuum trucks in Colorado. They have taken air duct cleaning to a new intergalactic level that is far more powerful and proactive than any on the market in El Paso County or Southern Colorado. Reach out to Planet Duct for any of your air duct cleaning needs.
Before this episode.
On this show, And I've set it up where we kind of, how I put the ads in now, I kind of let the conversation flow like through the first question, kind of how it goes, or at least part way through, and then I throw the ads in, I cut them in. And the last 4 episodes, 2 of them aren't released yet, but they will be by the time you're watching this. I've actually put People's Tiny House Festival as the first one.
I appreciate that.
Well, just because it's coming up, it's like,
a little sense of urgency here.
Yeah, so I put it's the last few episodes. It's been the first ad on the whole list, and there's about 5 ads now. And I'm thinking we might max out one spot at 5, and then if we get another ad, we're gonna have to create a category for mid-roll. Yeah, and we might have to do that because I think if we have more than 5, it's kind of like I don't want people clicking off before they even get, like, we get them all hyped to listen to the episode, and then they have to sit for 5-10 minutes through ads. And
that's
I know
how Rogan is right now too.
I know that works for Rogan. Yeah. I don't think he does that anymore.
Do you think it's working for Rogan?
What?
I don't
think he does it anymore.
Well, I sat through one the other day, and it was literally like 5 minutes worth of ads.
Oh yeah, okay.
And I just fast forward through it. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
do you think they listen to the whole thing when it's that many stacked? You're right. You're completely right. I don't think they do because
there's a percentage that does. People that don't want to change it or don't want to flip it, or they're driving. I know when I'm driving and I'm listening to a Joe Rogan episode and the ads are playing, a lot of the times, not all the time, I'll skip through it. But a lot of the times, I'll just let it play.
Yeah. Do you let it play through all of them, or do you let it play for like 1 or 2 of them, and then you go?
If I'm driving, sometimes I'll let it play through all of them.
All of them?
I've done it before, and I know other people probably have done it before.
Yeah.
And I think all that matters is whatever they're paying Joe, they get money back on. It doesn't matter like if how many people are actually listening to it as a ratio. All that matters is this is getting 20,000 people to buy our product.
Yeah, I bet there's like a big viability for whoever the first ad is.
Oh yeah,
for sure. Like they probably have like some level of rotation. Like, hey, you'll get the first one on maybe X amount of episodes.
It probably has a higher value.
Buffalo Trace or like Athletic Greens. Those are like the 2 main ones that he has on his. I bet like it's like an auction, and they're like the top spots or whatever of sponsorships for him.
100%.
Podcasts are so fun, man. I freaking everything changed. Like, look at this stuff from over a year ago. What we've changed and. Processes, and like it's the Wild West, which is one of the funnest things about podcasts. We've changed a lot. You don't have a ponytail anymore. A lot of things have changed.
Yeah. I mean, we've grown it up in a lot of ways, and I mean, and a lot of things have stayed the same too. And for a lot of things, it's really just fine tuning some small details. But really getting the systems and processes in, I think, is going to be the next huge step. And that's what we've been building the last 3 years, was really dialing those in. Well, at first it was kind of just like this is just the thing I'm doing. I don't have a big vision for it at first. But then when I brought it back to life after the hiatus, big vision. Like you've been around for at least 5 of my big visions, and one of you know how excited I get when those big visions come. Mm-hmm. Well, that was the same exact level of energy and excitement I had when I decided to go full into the podcast. Like not just doing it weekly, and the weekly has nothing to do with it, but not just like doing it at people's offices. Kind of, it's just like an extra thing for me to get to know the business community. There was that big vision in August 2020, where I was like, I think it was actually July, and I was like, super excited. I was like, this could be a #1 podcast. Like, I want a location downtown, like Joe Rogan. And when I first got the location, like I didn't even have all the microphone situated. Actually, I remember we had Dylan Newman on of Dart Wars, and we were both laved up. We had labs on, and that doesn't work because your lab is picking up my voice,
right?
And because they're omnidirectional. So we had bleeding onto both, so I couldn't really combine the audio without spending an extra 2 hours editing out and scooping out every other when someone's talking and not talking. And so it was just the most, and then I spent 2 hours scooping it out and cleaning it up, and it was still subpar.
Have you ever listened to the podcast? It's called Startup. Have you ever heard of that before?
No.
I don't know how I've never told you about this. This is actually like the parallels are being drawn like in real time with us and whatever this was. Startup was literally a podcast about someone starting up a podcast, and like him walking himself through the stages of like building the podcast. And then the podcast eventually had like different types of podcasts. It became like its own kind of label we were talking about before the show. But the first episode, the owner, who's also the host, he was pitching to Chris Sacca. Do you know who Chris Sacca is? No. He's like a very famous person. Speaking of Silicon Valley, he's like a very famous angel investor. Mm-hmm. He's very famous. He's been on Shark Tank before and stuff like that. But that was like the first episode. I think he had like his iPhone in his pocket, and he was like pitching the idea of startup podcast to Chris Sacca and be like, it's called Startup. It's a podcast, and it's literally documenting like the journey of us doing this startup as the podcast. And it's really funny. Like I think you would really love it because
is it a limited series?
Dude, just look it up on Apple, wherever you get your podcast, right? Look it up. It's really good though, because it talks about like the whole progression through it and like how you got investments to start everything up, all these different rounds and all these different things, getting the right people in place. It was like that was my introduction to podcasts. I think it came out in like 2014 or something like that. So it was like really early on, and they're like, podcasts could be the new thing. And like I listened to it. My buddy Steve Morocco was the one who referred it to me. But you should hear his first pitch of it to Chris Sacca, who's a billionaire, okay? And he's like pitching it over like lunch or something and he's so nervous, and it's kind of cool to see the progressions. I think that's a big part of your stuff as well, is like your progressions as a host, who you were. You're talking about the mics and stuff and what it was before, like when you were just starting as opposed to what they are now, and who knows 5 years from now. But it's cool to see that progression. I think a lot of the audience picks up on that and enjoys that, like you growing up in front of the camera hosting as well, because they have to buy into you as the host, you know. That's half the reason why they watch the podcast, is because you as a host, and then definitely who's on the show. But that was like the best thing I've ever seen as far as like mapping out from like the beginning to like becoming an established like podcast. It was really cool. It was really cool. We should put that as homework or something for sure. To just listen to that podcast. It's called Startup.
Oh, listen to that podcast. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you said homework as in going in through the entire journey of the COS Business Podcast and telling a story about it.
It's that's the fun thing about startups, is that you can do whatever you want with it. You know, you can have a big vision, but not until you get your feet wet do you really know what you're doing. You know, like that's why I love that we're kind of talking about like we're mind mapping now the framework of where we're going to take this thing, because now like you've gotten your feet wet, you know what this thing is, and you know like what the platform is.
I probably know how to produce a podcast better than 90% of people in the world.
Maybe more.
Yeah, it might be even higher
percentage.
Than that. Yeah, because I mean, 90% of people who know how to, let's say that, who know how to make a podcast. And I just feel like I've gathered so much wisdom over the years, even before this podcast. This podcast was really like a buildup of all the knowledge of the other podcasts that I did, And then within doing this podcast has been a build up itself too. And it's really cool just to see. I lost my train of thought, so now I'm just talking on my ass. Halfway while I was saying that, and I've done that. I do that sometimes. It's like I'm in the middle of talking, and I forget what I'm talking about, but I keep talking just to make sure that there's no dead space.
We already talked about that. We can have dead space. It's fine. Just you and I talking for sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna lean back.
No, we're talking about like formulating what the podcast was like. Maybe a year or two into it versus like from the beginning, because everybody knows it's going to change a lot from the beginning. And I mean, if you're an experienced entrepreneur, you could probably formulate from the beginning, but like when you're just kind of getting into things and you're doing startups, it's probably going to be something completely different in less than 2 years than what you originally planned. It's good to have a plan in place regardless, but it changes,
I think I could definitely come in as a, whether I do a course or I help people build their podcast. I don't want to just help them build their podcast. I want them to understand all the aspects. I want them to know about the clips. I want them to know about there's ways to market to market it. There's different kinds of funnels. There's different ways, different types of podcast. What is the systems that you can put in place to be successful from the get? One of the reasons why most people quit their podcast about 10 to 16 episodes into it is because they realize how much actual work it is. It's like you're doing so much, like especially if you don't edit. Like I'm thankfully already an editor, so that helps me. And that's actually one thing when it comes to editing podcasts. Me building the software that I'm building, that allows me to know more about editing a podcast than so many people because of the amount of hours I put in. Understanding every step and then A/B testing which step works best because I'm building a software for it. So I got to do that. So I'm like, even if it's the smallest detail, it's like jumping from here to here. What order of clips do I place it on the timeline the best way? So it's like I'm optimizing that in the most very precise way so that I can train my computer to edit my podcast for me, and then I can create that software and sell it to you. Or sell it to someone who wants
drop mic. Yeah, that's cool, man.
Yeah, we can't drop the mics with these stands though.
You can't drop the mic. No, that's awesome. Just kind of before we jump into the event stuff, we have some exciting things happening, and I'm sure our viewers have seen some changes in the equipment, but we are eventually, we're looking at ways of expanding our podcast and potentially even having more hosts or more guests on there. So it's very exciting times for us as a podcast in that sense too. And like Andrew, just through the progression of things, has gone to be such a great host and such a good listener, which is such a hard thing to do because we talk about it too. And anybody in any conversation knows this, but especially on podcasts, it is a little bit nerve wracking. You might forget your thoughts, but it's hard to listen and then be like, oh, I have a great thought. And then like save it to someone's done with what they're talking about and then still remember it because you're trying to give them their attention as much as possible too. So there's an art to it. It's a skill.
Simon Sinek, we've talked about him. We've quoted him on one of these episodes, I think.
Oh yeah.
There's another great podcast called Diary of a CEO. I just got onto it. I think it started blowing up over the last 5 months because Jordan Peterson was on there 5 months ago.
Oh man, yeah.
But it's really good.
It's with Simon?
Yeah, no. It's with this British guy. And he talks like this.
Always good to hear, yeah.
Robin Hood of Locksley. And so Simon Sinek was on it, and it was like about a couple weeks ago, I think, actually, maybe even a few days ago. It was relatively new, maybe a couple months ago. New.
Newish. Yeah.
And one specific thing that he was talking to me about, he wasn't talking to me about it, but it felt like it, was, are you listening or are you just waiting to talk? And so that's one of the biggest things to juggle when you're hosting a podcast. Because it's like when someone says something, it gives you a cool idea. And then that's all you want to think about. And now you're not listening. You're just waiting to talk. And and so him just saying it in that way was good.
Dude, he has like the best callbacks to so many different things. But one of my favorite things he's ever taught is he was referring to Nelson Mandela. I guess Nelson Mandela was, I think his parents were in a tribe in Africa, right? And like their big thing in the tribe is that the leader always speaks last, which is not normal for an American meeting. Usually an American meeting, everybody comes in and then like I stand up, I'm the CEO. I'm like, all right, guys, here's what the agenda is going to be. Here's my thoughts on boom, 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 boom. What are your all's thoughts? And everybody's just like, well, I'm not really paying attention. I agree with whatever you say, Marcus. Group speak, or what's it called? Group think. His is the opposite. Nelson Mandela's was the opposite. They literally went around the room and everybody got a fresh perspective of their own opinion before like the leader spoke. What I thought was really cool because it allows for people not to have that groupthink because what happens if you call the bottom of the bottom of the totem pole person like, hey, what are your thoughts on this? Like, what do you think about this? And they give you the real honest opinion. That's so important, you know, as long as you're able to do that as a group. Oh gosh, that's so powerful. And it also shows like the level of importance everybody has in a group, you know?
Yeah. I think it allows for non-bias thinking as well, too, because I actually do something similar like that sometimes, you know? It's like before I let someone know what, like instructions or certain types of things, I'm trying to think of an exact example and it's making me lose my direction because I'm trying to think of that exact example. But what I'll do is before I say anything, I don't want to influence them, you know? I don't want to influence them. I want to hear what their organic thoughts is. And maybe with a lot of marketing, sometimes you can do that too when you're testing things out with you kind of want to see, okay, what do they say if we don't give them this information? What is their thoughts, you know? And then you can build off of that. I think that's huge. I think I've heard something similar to that as well too, because you allow everyone to express what they're thinking, and then if you're the leader, that's what you should be doing. You should be making your decisions based off of the group, not how the group reacts to what you think is best. I think.
Right, and it's hard as a leader too. I mean, because I've known that for a long time, and I feel like kind of sidetracking, but recon. We started recon like that. We went around the group, and then the leader spoke last. And I feel like now I'm thinking back, I'm like, crap, man, the last like 6 months I've been like blabbering for like the first like 10 minutes. And then it's like, all right, everybody, I'm passing off to you, whatever.
Okay.
So I'm like, you gotta constantly remind yourself of those things too. It's super important to do.
Yeah. And then it's like, that just reminded me of the toast offs that you do. Everyone around the room says something, and then the person who's being toasted says something back.
Yeah, I think that's cool too. We do a thing with our group of friends where we just go around the room and say it's like a going away party or a birthday party. Everybody in the room gets to say at least something, you know, to that person. It could even be like, hey, you know, I don't really know you that well, but I got invited to this, and seems like you have a really good community of friends. This is something special, and best wishes. You know, but it gives everybody, it's like a good icebreaker. So like we used to do it at the very end of the parties. Now we're starting to do it more in the beginning of the parties because it's better icebreaker for everybody to like know more about each other and have more intel about one another. And that allows for the party actually to morph into something more mature as opposed to like you learn, I'm like, wow, I didn't know that about this person. I wish I had more time to talk to them about that, you know?
For sure.
So it's cool, you know? Yeah. So there's always so many, I love talking about those things like groups and leadership and meetings specifically and how to be more efficient, but also to build a culture at the same time. It's so important, man. Like, the art of having a meeting, I think, is like I think so many people, there's so many oversights in it, you know?
Yeah. So People's Tiny House Festival. How have you, how's it been since last year when we talked about the People's Tiny House Festival? What do you got going on this year?
It was such a blessing last year. Thank you so much for coming too. At 35,000 people come to it. Biggest event I've ever done on my own dime. And it was awesome. Kind of backtracking to last year, and you know a lot more about this because you're one of my closest friends and my confidant and a partner in a lot of things that we do. But like, you can do the best you can organizing and planning for things, but you just never know what's going to hit you at the last moment. And that's the scariest things about big events. And what I mean about that is we had a competitor event happen, I think it was the weekend before last year.
Yeah.
They had their event.
They planned that after they seen that you.
Yeah, every year. I don't even want to get in the weeds about that, but they always plan theirs like right before mine, just to kind of undercut us. Okay, but what happened to them, which was to their detriment, is that like, okay, they did that, but every participant that was there was like, well, we'll stay another week and go to the People's Tiny House Fest. Why not? You know. So I got all their participants to come over to my festival. Which is
Do you
cool.
think they realized that? If not, if they're
I think they did because
if they're
this year's
listening
3
right
weeks
now,
ahead. Yeah, so it's happening this weekend actually.
Okay.
So with planning, like I had a whole layout. You can be, like I was saying, you can be prepared. You can be like, all right, here's where everybody's going. Here's the layout. Here's the map. Let's get ready to print it. And then it's like a week out. It's like we doubled our participants. I was like, oh crap. Like, what is this? What is this going to look like? So my festival was supposed to be all around grass. And as Andrew knows, like we had to extend like this huge 5-acre dirt lot of more participants, which was supposed to be parking for our participants.
It was like the desert.
Yeah.
You had the jungle and then you had the desert.
Yeah, we had like the nice grass area with trees and everything. And then we had the dirt lot, which was like our overflow of all the participants. And so like, again, like you just never can plan for everything. You can never be too prepared in a lot of ways. Things always happen. That's what events do.
Had someone messing with the equipment on the stage, you know? It's like
So you got like a backstage pass to like a lot of the random things that happened. Yeah, someone was drunk and got on the stage in the middle of the night, and we had to go over there and we had to throw Andrew on them. Check him. Yeah, we had to stick Andrew on them. So it was an awesome event. These events have always been morphing slowly to being more vans and school bus conversions more than tiny houses. It's coming very interesting.
So it's the people's tinier house festival.
It's morphing into like the People's Simple Living Festival is kind of what it's turning into, which is fine. That's what my job always has been as an organizer is to mirror everything regarding tiny living at my festival. So if more people are getting into the vans or the school buses, like let's have a lot of those there. That might piss people off or whatever, but my job is to only mirror what's going on. And that's what I do. So every year it's changing. There's going to be a lot more vans, a lot more school buses this year, a little bit less tiny houses for sure this year. But regardless, I think we've got the rub to make like a really fun festival. It's going to be 95% live music this year instead of like the panel discussions, which is fun and it's very educational and it's good.
Is that more bands or just bands playing longer?
Both.
Okay.
So yeah, last year I think we had like 3 bands. This year we have 6.
Nice.
That we've hired. Wirewood Station out of the Springs. They're coming back, which they've been every year in my festivals, which is super exciting. We have another one called Mojo Filter, who's at a Monument too, who's coming.
Nice.
And then a guy named Gus Mesa as well out of the Springs. I always like to include Springs flavor. Arbor season, but they're not out of the Springs, but they're coming again. And then they have a lot of their like fellow DIY/dweller.
Yeah, they're Canadian. They're Canadian, right?
Actually, I don't know if they are.
I think they are.
They are?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Sweetest people ever. Like, they're like an ambassador for our festival for us. They get like more DIYers come to, they're just like the coolest people. Andrew got to meet them last year. So cool. So all those people are coming back this year. And then we're doubling food trucks because last year we had like a 45-minute to an hour wait for food. And we had 6 food trucks. We thought that was enough. So we're doubling that up. We already got all of them vetted through as well. And then we have a lot more vendors this year too. So it changes every year. But like been so blessed with like all the sponsorships and everything up front. Like last year I talked about like going all in on every one of these festivals, which is like very nerve wracking. And I'm still going all in, but this is the first time in my life where like you're
stepping out too.
I'll be okay.
You're stepping away a little bit too, right?
Yeah. I'm doing things a little bit differently this way, or this year rather, but it's a good thing. It's a good thing for me to have such success last year and be able to have some money aside for other things I might be doing on top of Recon, on top of COS Business Podcast or the event. So I'm planning on different things to differentiate myself. I don't know exactly what the outlook looks like for the festival. If I'm going to be the main one organizing it in future years, maybe I am. Maybe I just do Van Life Festival. I don't know. But this year is definitely something special going around this year. So I'm excited to do it and put it on and be as hands-on as I possibly can with the People's Tiny House Festival. So I'm pumped. And one last thing too, like it's special to me because 1, it's my first like major business that's ever had success. And 2, it's been a family affair. As Andrew knows, like my whole family's there. They managed ticketing. My grandfather just passed away in December, but he was at every festival essentially, minus last year because he was already getting older and sick. And like it's been a family affair from the very beginning. My sister, my nieces, nephews have all been a part of it too. So it's cool, man. It's cool to see that aspect. And when you do things like this, it's really eye-opening to see who has your back when you need it most. You know, who's going to step in when you need them. For sure. And it's just really special. I don't know how to like really put the feeling into words. It makes you feel really like really blessed to have those people step in and stuff like that. That's why I always love that you're a part of it, and we had such a big impact on it last year. We did the podcast on stage last year, and we're welcome to do that again this year if we want to, because it is segmented in if we want to do that.
Oh, you have it already segmented?
Yeah. So if we want to do it, we can. It's already in there. We can have something up there. It's going to be that and then the Paul Wedgewood Award.
We're going to need to set aside an hour or two of strategy.
Yeah.
Like a week or two before. Like,
yeah.
Just to make sure that we're kind of situated just a little bit better, but also doing it last year. And I've also done literally like so many events since then.
Yeah.
I have so much more experience with that. So so it's like having to deal with all that stuff because last year is and I'm talking, of course, right when that thing resets. But it's cool because it'll be on you. Last year, we basically accidentally killed our main hardware for the podcast on stage.
So crazy.
Or at least sent it to its death. And we've been using this, and it's been good so far, except for that it's been kind of glitching out. And I think that's just because, I mean, it gets one out of every... I mean, I've used it over 100 times.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It's mostly it's
a 1% type of thing.
Yeah, it's like a 1%, maybe even more than that. Maybe I don't notice it, but it's I don't know. This thing is designed to be recording long term. I mean, it's called the Pod Track 4, so it's like it's designed for long. But it's been about a year since we've had it though, and it's gotten a lot of use. It's traveled with me to different states. It's been not thrown around, but kind of thrown around, I guess you could say. I make sure it's in my backpack though, so it's not thrown around on the airplanes. The checked bags, they'll throw your shit, dude. They'll grab your luggage, your checked bags, and they'll toss it onto the conveyor belt.
Oh, dude, I know they will. It's
right
insane.
in front of you.
Yeah, they don't give a crap. They don't give a shit for sure. Yeah, I mean that's a whole nother bag of crazy crap we can talk about.
A whole nother bag of checked bags.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. But it's going to be a good event. I also want to talk about the Paul Wedgewood Award. I don't know if we've even talked about that on this show before, which is so important, right? It's the most. So they have the People's Choice Award, which is like the voted award for the favorite model brought to the event. It can be a house or van or whatever. It's everybody gets to vote who comes in, so all the patrons get to vote for their favorite model. It's the favorite model, right? But the Paul Wedgewood Award is something that we do in our partnership with Mattersville, who Drew's been on this podcast before.
And we talked about Paul on his episode, I think.
Yeah, we did. I think a little bit on that. But Paul Wedgewood was my best friend. He passed away. He took his own life. It was a PTSD suicide. And he was my best friend. And he had a lot of great characteristics about him that we want to keep alive and forever live. So we honor a veteran suffering from PTSD in the community every year in honor of him. So we've done it. I think we've done it 3 years. This will be the 4th year for it. And this year is going to be very, very special. I'll just give that as a little bit of a teaser. It's going to be some waterworks going on this one, and you're going to love this one too. So we might have to do something special for that too, but it's going right after the podcast. So right at the end of the show. And you're going to get excited. I'll show you. Okay. I'll show you tonight when we do our little pre-planning party. I'll show you tonight the awards. I already have the awards.
If I could throw a camera in front of someone's face while they're most vulnerable and crying, I'm down.
I know. That's what you do. Yeah. And we'll have to talk more, but like Andrew last year also, like there's so many things that morph every year, but you became like a big personality of the festival. You were going around with your camera and like doing like walkthroughs and tours of different types of rigs. Like people were like, dude, I want him to do my rig. That was awesome. I saw him doing his thing like over here in this school bus. And like learning the vernacular of like what a schoolie is and all these different things, and like kind of just like mingling with a lot of the people. They love that stuff, man. They love recognition. That's another thing of leadership. People will die for recognition. It's important for you to like, no matter what, like any team you lead, to give, those people who they might not want anything from you, but if you recognize them in front of the group, like that means everything. And I'm making sure that I'm doing that this year more than I've ever done it. So
yeah, I've got some ideas to discuss. We could discuss them right now or later. I mean, just thinking is like, do we want to do vertical? Do we want to do vertical in short, or horizontal in 5 minutes, or both? I don't know.
I want to do vertical and short.
Okay.
I want to hit a lot of jabs out there.
Maybe the winner gets a longer, more detailed kind of crib kind of thing.
MTV cribs.
But yeah, I mean, we could do the vertical and short under a minute. Under a minute's kind of hard when it comes to the interviews, just because. But I can edit things down to. I'm good at boiling things down to their highlights, to the most interesting aspects, and that's what's cool about doing. I think one cool thing about doing 1 minute shorts is that it allows you to boil down the creme de la creme, the thing that's most interesting and the most engaging, and cut out all the fat, And Yeah.
Well, it's just funny because a lot of people would be like, well, dude, it's only like a tiny house. There's not much to cover. But you forget that, like, a tiny house, a van, school bus, like every square inch of that sucker has some kind of functionality to it. So you can really get into the weeds, right? Like you're saying, like everything has a function.
Story.
Yeah.
Every little piece has a story too. It's like a lot of these DIYers, they built it themselves. They know exactly what went into this little aspect in their thing. Like maybe they did something that was super innovative and cool that they think, and they can really go into that. There's every little thing has a story there. So
yeah, meaning and significance. It can even be a certain color that means something to them. So you're right. Yeah, it's cool. Like I've enjoyed this whole journey with the events, and it's so funny because I've gotten a lot of people wanting me to consult on their events just because of how large my event is. And like, you learn so much when you put together a large event like that. And I'm thinking too that after the event this year, I'm probably going to like lean more into like helping out Colorado Springs community events more in some way, shape or form, at least having like a availability to do it. At least like, I don't even care if it's volunteering, but just helping, because I've gained a lot of good wisdom and experience from this that can be contributed to Southern Colorado. And I miss that. That's the one thing I do miss about being here and doing my festival here, was that, I miss contributing to our community, to our economic impact, so I think that's the way I'm going to be able to at least fulfill that void.
Yeah, because when you do events, like a lot of people may not know, that event is more than just what's going on at the event. It allows everyone who's going to that event, especially if it's drawing outside people, or even if it's drawing inside people. Maybe it has economic development for a concentrated area. It's like people are going out, they're buying food at these places, they're going to grocery stores, they're checking out all the local cultural things, and contributing to the community, the economic impact of that community. And events are more than just what's going on at the event. It trickles out. And
so important. Like, anybody who's ever loved any city, like the first thing they say is it's built off the events, nightlife, the bars. Like, these are all little mini events, right? So and then like you think about Fort Collins, and I know you haven't been up there too much, but like the reason why they're so one is they have so many breweries around there, so and all the breweries are doing events all the time. But they have Taste of Fort Collins, which is like this massive whole citywide event. They have New West Fest. They have all these huge, they get like Ice Cube, Snoop Dogg, like they get all these like huge headliners. This tiny town, like 170,000 people in it. And they're able to draw that because of the events that they do. It's special. And that's something I want to contribute to the Springs about, to the Springs, because we have a lot of people trying to step in and do that, and they're doing a really good job. And I know I can.
In just a few years, we're going to have so much more.
Definitely, we've had a lot of new things going in downtown, and I speak to a lot of people who might not been downtown the past few years because they don't know, because we had this stigma for a long time of like the one downtown that has nothing going on. We have a lot going on now. We just had Fan Fest yesterday, which is like that. I was about
to say that. I seen that. I didn't know.
Exactly.
I don't know what it was.
That's what I'm saying. That's my favorite event that they do here.
Yeah, Donnie Coram. I always say his name wrong. I don't know. But I say Coram. I don't know. I'm not going to get into that. I always get sidetracked.
Yeah.
He's right across the street, and he was like filming off of his loft, off of his condo, because it's right off of Tejon, right here where we're at, And I was like, what the hell is Fan Fest? What is it?
Fan Fest is like an event that the city puts on before the hill climb, the Pikes Peak hill climb.
Oh, yeah, I did look into it.
A lot of international attention. It's one of the deadliest races in the world. It's a race to up Pikes Peak. And they used to have motorcycles too. They outlawed that a couple of years ago because, like I said, one of the most deadly races in the world. A motorcyclist died 2 years ago on it, and you can probably understand how, because there's no guardrails. You're going up a 14er.
I was here 2 years ago. You sure it was 2 years ago?
It was 2 or 3 years ago. It was very recent.
Okay.
I know it wasn't last year as much.
Just a couple of weeks ago, I've been here for 3 years exactly.
Oh wow! Yeah. So you're here no matter what for it. Yeah. It wasn't like
I probably didn't catch it.
Yeah. But yeah, someone's died on it like at least every other year I've been here. So it's super deadly. But again, it draws a lot of international attention. They filmed Fast and the Furious on the Pikes Peak Highway going up there. It's a famous highway.
They did that?
Yeah, they did.
Which Fast and the Furious? Number 12?
I know, right? The last one that Paul Walker ever was on.
Oh, really?
They had to do. I think they had to film the ending like CGI him in the ending.
I remember that ending.
Is it Fast 6 or something or 7?
I've seen that one.
Yeah, so there's like I don't know if it's at the end. It's like probably in the middle of the movie.
And I'll see you again.
I think it was that one. Yeah.
Okay. Because that's how Charlie Puth got famous because of that Paul Walker moment. Because of Paul Walker dying, Charlie Puth got famous.
Yeah. It's crazy how that happens sometimes. Yeah. But so it's famous, and that's what FanFest is about. It's kind of celebrating the cars or whatever that's going to be doing the race. Mm-hmm. So I think you know who Ken Block is. He's like a really famous driver. He does like some of the coolest drifts videos.
His name's Block?
Ken Block.
It's funny how that works, you know? Like people go by their names.
I wish I knew more about this. It's like something Kana, Jimmy Kana. I don't remember what it's called.
Okay.
But, he does this famous video with like drifting around like a city or whatever it might be. And for anybody who's like a junkie with cars, will know
Red Bull sponsored probably him on one of the things that I've seen,
I think Red Bull.
I know there's some crazy
definitely Monster.
Okay.
Definitely does. And sometimes he'll drive like a souped up Ford Focus or something, but it's like you don't even think it's a Ford Focus when it's like all souped up. It's sweet. He's super famous for it. He's done a lot of things with Travis Pastrana.
Okay.
I think they're actually partners in some things too that they do. But anyways, he's super famous. He was supposed to race up there today, and like something happened with his vehicle, so he wasn't able to do it.
Oh, I seen that. Yeah.
So I think he was here. It was like last night.
It was a green car. Edgar posted about it.
Oh, I think you're right. Yeah.
And then Jeff posted about it too.
Oh, really? Yeah. So I mean, we have a lot of great things here in the Springs, and I want to be able to contribute to that.
Pikes Peak, you know, we got mountains and we're close to them, and that was my main draw to Colorado Springs, in that it wasn't sardine packed.
Dude, it's the stigma and there's a lot of stigmas here, but like whenever I lived anywhere else in Colorado and they talked about the Springs, like some of them loved them, some of them were like, oh, the Springs. And I'm like, we have so many, Garden of the Gods, Pikes Peak, Seven Falls, the Olympic Training Center, the Olympic Museum. They have so many great things. We just need somebody to package it all up and tie it all together and like celebrate that. Because like, who all knows besides people that live here that it's Olympic City, USA? Who all knows that? Like, who's not from Colorado Springs?
No one.
That's pretty cool.
Only Olympians, probably.
That's pretty cool. You know, we have to like. Yeah. It's cool. I think right now we're in the process of like getting everybody to like know that top of mind here in the Springs. But there is gonna be a time where the state's gonna have to know, and the rest of the United States is gonna have to know.
Well, I'm sure I wasn't the only one. When I was told that, hey, we're going to Colorado Springs to do some construction, are you in? I was like, cool. I thought I was going to Denver. I thought it was a suburb of Denver. I didn't realize it was its own like separate thing. I mean, it's an hour drive, which is pretty close to a big city. And I mean, being an hour away from a big city such as Denver is pretty close, borderline metro, but not at all. You know, it's like it's an hour. You know,
right?
But I mean, it could take you an hour just to get from the bottom of Denver's metro to the top of Denver's metro. You know,
yeah, it's big.
Yeah, and so it's like it's not that far. And I mean, on the map, that's where I thought I was going, but I didn't find out until I was actually here that they're completely different. It's just too. The only thing we get from Denver is the homeless people. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, we are building ourselves like our own little self-identity, and there's a lot of great players that we know who are helping contribute to that and like the future of the Springs, which is super exciting too. I think every time I've come on here, I've talked about like the amazing people that we have, you know, that have like, and they're all, the funny thing is they're all transplants, which is kind of hilarious if you think about it. They're all transplants, and these are all the people who are like taking the vision of the Springs and like throwing out that huge blanket to other people to adopt and be like, yeah, that sounds awesome.
A lot of them are millennials too.
Yep.
I actually, when I first moved out here, I read an article saying that Colorado Springs almost every year gets published in one magazine of being the number one place to live in America, one magazine or another, and it was the number one place for millennials to live. You know, that was that article, that publication. Colorado Springs continuously gets placed in different publications of being one of the top places to live in the world.
Right.
And it's pretty cool. But it's like we're such a big and small city at the same time.
Yeah. Lots of little mini pockets. Like I'm from Northgate. Like we had no reason to ever come downtown or anywhere else because we had everything in Northgate.
Oh yeah.
And it's probably even worse now because they have like Whataburger, In-N-Out, Top Golf, like, that big amphitheater that's going there. It's gonna be rivaling Red Rocks is in their hopes, at least of what it's gonna do. So like if we're able to like centralize that downtown, whatever that vibe, that taste that we're trying to give our city, it's gonna be game over. Like we have a lot of infrastructure to be as big as Denver, even area wise. We do, you know.
And it's like, whether we want it or not, that's coming. That's happening. Like, whether you want it or not, like cities grow, especially ones with this potential as Colorado Springs.
Yeah. It's exciting at times to be a millennial, I mean, every generation, but it's exciting times to just live here in the Springs too. Just because, you know, it's kind of a change of guards going on right now. It's pretty exciting. And we know so many people who are doing so many fun things to build a melting pot in the Springs, which makes it so much more exciting. I think that's why you and I get jazzed about this town, you know, and like laying our roots here. I think people underestimate like that decision. Like that's an important decision, and it doesn't come lightly for any person, of course, right? To lay your roots down in a city. This city didn't have that for a long time. It was the city of like you go to college and then you leave for Denver or Fort Collins or Boulder or out of state or whatever. And that guard's changing.
Or you're here for the military, and then you leave and you may come back.
Very transient.
Actually, that's what happens. A lot of, I think, the transplants are ex-military who were stationed here at one point in time, and they liked it. You know, that's actually a common theme I've seen. I was just talking about Dylan Newman earlier. He's one of those guys.
Dylan?
The guy who owns Dart Wars.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Oh, I brought him up when I was talking about how like he was the episode we were on lav mics. You know, that's what I was saying.
Right.
But he's a good example of someone who was in the military who came here and was traveling, lived in Germany and stuff like that for the military, and decided to ultimately plant his roots here when he retired. And he was doing like a lot of the Spartan races and stuff like that. He was like organizing a lot of those. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that detail in there. I don't know why. I don't know.
Well, it layers on to why the city's like there's so many different people, different stacks of life who like adopt this place for different reasons, you know. And
a lot of it is military, though.
Yeah,
that is the big
we have
draw.
4 military installations here. We would have had 5 with the Space Force, but I think they might be leaving here soon. We're trying to fight that.
Yeah.
But so yeah, it's definitely a military town, but it's changed a lot too. It's not just a military town now.
I mean,
a long time it was a military town. That's it. But it's turning into other things, which is exciting. What were you saying?
Well, I was just saying we have Cheyenne Mountain. You know.
Yeah.
Like,
NORAD.
That's a massive piece of military, whatever you call it, you know.
Yeah, NORAD's ridiculous. It used to be where any high up official would go to, you know, seek safety away from nuclear threats.
Yeah.
I mean, it's legit. That's why
I think it still is probably, huh?
Yeah, the Springs probably is high up there on like at least
security.
You know, yeah, and for other countries, like if they were to ever seek an attack, like this town is on a list somewhere, you know, just because of that.
I've already thought about that so many times.
Yeah.
It's kind of like it makes you feel safe, you know, being around so many military things, but it also makes you feel like a target too.
Yeah. Well, the one thing we have here too is a very, very high level of cybersecurity. I think a lot of the installations specifically regarding cybersecurity and private
I've thought about that too.
Government.
I bet every message I've ever sent in this town has been very thoroughly.
Well, I don't know what you're sending, Andrew, but
I don't want to know.
Yeah. But yeah, so there's a lot going on here, man. It's cool, you know, and you know, with the festival, I feel like it's built out its own little flavor, which is super special too. I wanted to get your opinion of okay. So last time we spoke about it, you hadn't been to one yet, and you get a different perspective because you kind of get behind the curtain type of things, like all crap going wrong too. But it's a cool perspective nonetheless. Like, what did you think of the festival last year? And like, what were some highlights for you?
What did I think of the festival specifically?
Yeah, and then like maybe some highlights. You can include that in your answer too.
Yeah, I mean, it was just it was fun for me because I like being a part of something big, and you know, and I wanted to be there to help you too as well. I didn't really get to go and see a lot of the inside of, except for the ones that I filmed, and then I was also like editing on my phone a lot of the time too, getting some edits done. I was in the cool air because it was like 95 degrees.
Yeah.
And
Gosh.
I was in the cool air editing, so I mean, a lot of the things, you know, but you know, I just thought it was cool, you know, being there with friends and being there to help out and see how you were doing things. For me to experience the operations of an event at that scale was fun. That's the thing I like, you know. I wasn't there for the Tiny House Festival. I was there for the operation of the Tiny House Festival.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's like, it's like tiny houses are cool, but they're not my thing,
Right.
So it's like that wasn't running a business is my thing. So that's what I was excited about there, and being there to support my friends.
Right.
And having Brian be there, camping out in the grass. And it was just a fun experience, and just kind of, I just like the bonding, the camaraderie was the best part for me. And then afterwards, having just, I don't know, man. That was kind of my thoughts of it. I thought it was popping. I thought it was cool to see how you were doing the logistics behind everything, things I didn't even think of. It's like you don't think about parking, you don't think about how much of a logistics nightmare that is.
Yeah.
When it comes to having that many people come to your festival. And you have to have people running that, you have to have people specifically for that, and if you don't, you're probably going to get a lawsuit on your hand or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I've been through it all already. Been sued from the event. I've done the event in fields. We did our very first event at the Air Force Academy right in front of Falcon Stadium, and gosh, that's like, you never know how nice it is to have marked out parking lots than when you are doing an event in a field, because you have to park every individual car perfectly, or you'll get jagged lines, you'll get people hitting each other's car. It's like you immediately have to put like 10 times more personnel in the parking, specifically when it's just a field, rather than be like, go through here, park, go through here, park. Like, people understand that. So again, that's kind of the breadth of experience that you learn when you do these things. Outdoor events, weather's always going to be an element no matter what. Colorado in July, it's either going to be super hot or it's going to rain or hail. All those are, things that are not going to be very nice for people for too long, right? So you have to plan for that. And this year we're actually partnering up with the Home Expo next door. They were there last year. They're called the Northern Colorado Home Expo. They're the Home Expo. The company that does that is called Nationwide Expos. And so they'll have their own home show going on next door. So say something does happen with the weather, people will be able to go into the Home Expo and kind of wait out the weather, as opposed to like go home. That's what we don't want them to do, right? We want them to stay, enjoy the festival as long as they can. There's gonna be live music the whole time, so we want to make sure that like those people are getting eyeballs on them who are playing music as well, and all the different things that we have going on at the festival. But like, just like I was saying, like, you do learn so much, like even when you're just observing the event and how it's going on. But like, and people don't think about this. Like, I have a schedule the whole week of the festival, like when I need to get a U-Haul, when the media is coming on this day, when load-in is. Like, a good example is the Friday before the festival. The festival starts Saturday, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Every 10 minutes, someone's loading in for 10 hours straight. Someone's loading in for every 10 minutes. So think
loading
about that.
In, like putting their
so bringing a house, bringing a vendor coming in or whatever. So every 10 minutes, someone new's coming in, and we're checking them in for 10 hours straight.
Yeah, that's
and like, not many people think about that. They're like, oh, they all come and like you just play. Like, no, that's not how these bigger events work. You have to be prepared for that. Like, how many badges they're gonna have? What are you gonna hand out to them? What's the Wi-Fi? What's the rules if they're camping overnight? Blah 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 blah. So like, it's a lot. And the good thing about it is, like, at this point, like, most of that stuff I already like created or have thought of, or like we screwed up on in the past and we've learned from. So I'm at a very different part of my life where like the festival is pretty well, we talked about automation on our last episode. Like, automation's very put in place for the festival at this point too, which is cool, and I want to do other events. I don't know what it looks like, but I want to organize other events eventually as well. I love the van life movement. It's easier to get them to an event. Rather than a tiny house where you have to get like a dually truck or a semi to come and pick them up and drive them all the way across the country. It's a van. It's on 4 wheels, right? Yeah. And I love the customers, because the customers are like either like millennials who are like looking for alternative options for affordable living, or they're baby boomers who want like a freaking sweet Sprinter, Mercedes Sprinter that's 150 grand or something like that. But either way, like, they have it. Their ideologies are very Colorado, which is they love the outdoors. They love to travel and see things, and experiences are very important to them. And I think that's awesome. It's, again, easier event to put together. The ideologies of all the people involved is fun. Get along with all of them. And so we'll see what happens with that. See if if that's a next year type of thing for me or if it's 5 years from now. But I think that's really cool, and I think there's something very special happening in the van life movement. If you don't know what the van life movement, again, it's just people who are building out these. They're either called conversion vans or camper vans, really the same thing depending where you live. And they're either like living in them full time or they have them for recreational purposes. So they can have anything from just like a bed in there and maybe a sink to like fully like swagged out type of like a van with a bed, a shower, a sink, a toilet, whatever it might be. It's special and it's happening a lot, and they're like builders for those different types of vans are sprouting up everywhere. It's kind of cool and special to see. You even see celebrities now buying a bunch of them. I just posted a Jason Momoa video
I seen that,
3 weeks ago about it.
He was like in the shower and then he went into Whole Foods.
Yeah, and I know the builder of that van, so it's cool, right?
Yeah.
So you just get to know like, I know the builder of that or whatever. Celebrities are getting it too. I mean, they use it for a lot of different things too.
Yeah.
So
that's funny, like, because that's similar how people in the construction industry, if you ever if you're ever in a car with someone who builds buildings in town, they're like, oh, I built that, I built that,
Right.
kind of feeling like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. So what is the draw? What brings people to want to come to the Tiny House Festival?
Oh man, we talked about this last year, but it's different stacks of people. So the draw is always different. Like
why would someone in Loveland or someone somewhere, why would they want to come to the festival?
To my festival specifically, there's so much draw, right? So we know specifically going on in Colorado right now. Actually, in the U.S., we know for sure right now because of the state of where we are as a country. The housing is skyrocketing.
Yeah.
Rent's skyrocketing. Housing prices are skyrocketing. So people are seeking alternative options for affordability. Now we've started to dub it as like simple living. So they're curious more than ever to seek other options besides buying a $600,000 house. What's a tiny house? What the heck is that? What's the regulations? What's the zoning? They're curious. We get a lot of curious people who've never even sat or stepped inside of a tiny house before,
or even read an article.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting. You'll get like the diehards who want to hear the panels, who've like been to 10 festivals, who know all the builders come. And then you get like the people who are like,
they kind of just want to learn more about.
I want to know what this is all about. They look kind of funny. I don't know if I can live in 180 square feet, but let me check it out. Let me step foot in one of them.
Let me fill it out.
Yeah. Or my girlfriend dragged me to it and I end up loving it. And what we find is like the gals typically like the houses and the men typically like the vans. That's just kind of funny too,
Yeah, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, but again, it all depends. But like you get all those stacks of people. You get like the people who are like looking for like literally alternative living options to the people who are like, these are sweet. I want to throw it in the cabin in the woods type of vibe on my land, 20 acres in Cripple Creek.
You could even Airbnb it if you want to. That's what John does. Yeah. He has. I think he has like some tiny houses.
Beloved Cabin. Yeah. John Kernahan, our MC, who does a bunch of these festivals on the East Coast, he does Beloved Cabin, and he's been like, Airbnb is a major sponsor of him. He's like the face of Airbnb and tiny houses, which is awesome. Airbnb is huge, and he's the face of like most of the tiny houses on Airbnb.
Yeah.
They've even doing, just to think, this is not something so small, guys. Like a lot of my friends are also involved in a bunch of like HGTV specials that are coming out. They're also being produced on Netflix too. So it's still blowing up. Tiny houses are still blowing up. And it's funny, you get these sub things like vans and school buses too on it. So you have like all these different things sprouting out depending on like the feasibility of what people are able to attain in their areas. Tiny houses obviously depends on the zoning and the county. The zoning in the county, whether or not you can even place this thing in there.
Yeah.
Especially when they're on trailers, If there's a tiny house on a permanent foundation, you can probably get it a lot more. It's easier to pass that because it's immovable, so they can tax that because it's always going to be there. But how do you tax something how do you do property taxes on something that's always moving?
Yeah,
it's hard. That's why it's hard for the government to classify these things as permanent living spaces. Or are they just an RV that something's recreational purposes and you're not supposed to live in them full time? So
yeah, what I think I heard someone saying, or there was an article, someone was saying that there's been. Maybe I'm misremembering, but maybe they were saying that what I am remembering, and it may be misremembering, is that they're saying the tiny house movement was actually shrinking. Is there something going on like that?
It's morphing.
Morphing.
It's definitely morphing.
Okay.
Well, think about what we were just saying too. So it's hard so you go to a tiny house show, You're like, I want that tiny house. Great. Yeah, you can buy that tiny house. Okay, so where am I going to be able to put it? Well, that's a whole nother problem to figure out. Where am I going to put it? Can I put it there? Is it possible for me to put it there? Is it in the mountains of wherever, Larimer County or what? So there's a lot of friction points. We talked about friction points earlier on about convenience. As we know in the human race right now, convenience is becoming a big pivotal thing in a lot of people's lives. Get things delivered to you. You're getting less friction in things for convenience. It's the same thing that's happening in the tiny house movement, right? So that's why more people are moving towards vans, because it's like, well, I can go take this van and I can go live and park up at Walmart's for the next year or two. And guess what? I don't need to buy a truck to move it. It's got its own. It's on 4 wheels. So it's changing. It's changing. So like you see things that are blowing up separately than just tiny house now. Van life movement, school bus conversions. Those are starting to really, really take off.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, do you have an idea of what they might have been talking about? Because I think they were saying something negative was happening.
Yeah, you get a lot of pushback from local government.
That's the main thing.
So, you're a builder in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and all of a sudden they say, hey, these are not allowed here. Well, you're a builder here. What are you going to do? You're probably going to have to either pivot or you're going to close up your doors. And during any new movement, whatever, there's always going to be a big point where a lot of the people go out of business because it's the Wild West. It's just starting out. That's why that saying, pioneers get slaughtered and settlers prosper. Anything in any new industry, it always has the same thing. MySpace. I loved MySpace. Yeah, a lot more capabilities on MySpace than you did on Facebook, but it was a pioneer. They got slaughtered. They got something that came out after it that was a little bit more user-friendly and a little bit simpler for people to adopt to. It's the same thing with the tiny house movement.
Had a little bit of fire behind it, too.
Yeah, so, I mean, it happens with everything. That's why it's interesting about, like, we can get into, like, the crypto thing, and a lot of that is happening there, too, and a lot of it's happening in the tiny house movement. A lot of people who have been able to stand their ground or grow during this, they either had to be like really put the foundation early on and build upon that, or they wouldn't survive. So that's what's happening. It's always an influx of new builders coming in, old builders dying out. So it happens with everything. Yeah.
And yeah, for sure. And I was just thinking about like with competition, that can make things, when there's more people in the market, it makes it harder to break into the market. If you're running it as a business, but I mean, if you just want a tiny house, go make a tiny. Now you have more options,
Right.
Now you can get it fully customized and done for you, and like it's a freaking pizza,
Yeah, and you always have naysayers with everything. So some people are like, these are just glamorized RVs or trailers.
Yeah, I could see that. And tiny houses has been around for a long time. Actually, they have a long history. Actually, that has morphed into from a hippie kind of movement to a kind of new age hippie kind of movement.
It all again goes back into the stacks of people. You'll see like the conservatives go in there, and there's a lot of them at my festival that are like, no, I'm just looking to throw this on my land. I want a cabin in the woods, or I want to make money from this by Airbnb-ing it. Like there's the conservatives coming in. And the liberals are like, no, screw the man, alternative living. Like, I'm not even going to like register myself living here full time. I'm buying a tiny house and throwing it wherever I want. Like, you get those people too. So it's different stacks of people all the time going into it. So that's what makes it super exciting. That's what got me like really fascinated with this and sticking with it early on, because I was like, this is like the best. Like, I've never seen so many conservatives and like liberals hanging out together, laughing together. This is like, am I just like solving world peace over here? What's going on over here at this festival?
Nice.
But it has that effect on people. I think people put those things aside and they realize that they want them to serve different purposes in their life.
Yeah, it's interesting how a community was built around the idea of tiny houses. Like, it's obviously, if you want a tiny house, you can have a tiny house. You don't got to be a part of the community at all. But it's interesting how there was a community that did develop, and kind of like a family in a lot of ways, I guess you could say. Or kind of like a fan base for a band. It's kind of funny how these communities kind of pop up, and tiny houses being one of them. It's
so true. Anybody who's ever like a nerd about tiny houses will know my name, because it's such a small community of like people who have been there. And I haven't been there for even close to the beginning, but like, like you said, it's like a little like mini culture going on in it that's helped lay the groundwork for a lot of the things with it. Events, obviously, like we were talking about before, help with that. Any event, like that's what sparks movements, is events. You know, like think about the Coachella festival. I think it was like the first of its. There's probably others that were around, but like big music festival going on multiple days, multiple stages, Warped Tour, or any of those things. Like those are like those spark different types of movement. There's like a music festival movement that happened 15 years ago in the U.S.
Yeah,
and it happened in Europe before that, and it's cool. Like that's, you know, for young people, those are the things that like get them excited and amped up, you know, about life.
Yeah, people like going to festivals. It's interesting.
I think music is the universal language of love. I think if there's I don't know if I believe in world peace, but I think if there's a way to it, it's definitely through music, because the only way that like it's the only language that everybody lets their guard down to and can fall in love with. So that's why I think there's been a lot
except for deaf people.
Wow, that's very true.
No,
well, you know what?
kidding.
Maybe there is a thing. I think there is something with deaf people and music, like the vibrations of something that are able to keep them. Like music is more than just hearing things; it's also feeling it too.
Yeah,
that's why Red Rocks is so famous, because it's like you feel the vibrations of the sound waves through the rocks, and they're like bouncing back through you because it's like two rocks and you're in the middle of it. So it's interesting. Like if you think of the beginning of like humanity, it probably was technically the first language was music, you know. Other animals have been I think they've been recorded as like singing different hymns and stuff, like dolphins and whales and things of that nature.
Hymns,
like was it the hymns? Like they've been like humming different things, and it's like different types of things to communicate with one another, which is it's language. There's a pattern to it. So I say it's music, but it can also be language or whatever. But there's something to it, you know. And that again goes back to festivals, events, and all those different things. There's a reason why there's so many music festivals, Andrew, out there, because it draws people together, and it's special, you know.
So are you gonna take the People's Tiny House Festival into the Metaverse?
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. I'm an early adopter in a lot of things too.
Okay,
not as quick as you, but I do.
Well, imagine like, you know, like it's from 30,000 people to 30 million people.
Oh, for sure. No, for sure.
That would be wild. Probably not for a tiny house festival, 30 million, but maybe it started out as a tiny house festival and it evolved to this 30 million people event in the Metaverse. Imagine 30 million people in one place.
I don't think people have wrapped their head around that the Metaverse will be a thing in our lifetime, and that it's going to change. Like we thought the internet was such a big thing. Like we have no idea. Like the Metaverse, it's literally going to change how all of our senses, right?
How we interact with a lot of things.
Yeah,
you know,
how we experience things is going to change forever with it. And like, it's kind of funny. I think social media is actually kind of like a dipping your toe into what a Metaverse actually looks like, because you become something different. You become what you want other people to view you as. You
do that in the real world too.
Yeah, and well, it's easier on social media because you can distribute it to everybody and be like, oh, look, like I'm only doing fun things, because you only usually post fun things on your stories or whatever. You can post a bunch of different things on stories, but usually it's like highlights of your day or whatever. That's why they originally call them highlights.
Well, when you're in meetings and you're around people, you don't typically you kind of filter yourself, you know, no matter what scenario, and you're filtering yourself in a lot of ways. It's the people that are closest to you that see the most unfiltered version of you, I think. And I think it's the people who are the most unfiltered across all platforms, the world, the Metaverse, social media, are the ones that, you know, people really love, and like, because they're being authentic.
Steve-O. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's so true.
I don't know. I was just kind of riffing there.
You know what's funny about that, what you just brought up, and this is like the biggest thing for me, as far as like this big dispute of like whether or not you should go remote or you should go back to the office. Is everything okay?
Yeah, we're good.
Whether you should go to remote or you should go back to the office is, I think there's nothing more enticing than being face to face with people and being in person. So I'm a big proponent on going back to the office at least some time, because there's something to be said about you and I interacting right now in person that we could never get, at least for now, that we could never get like through a Zoom call, you know, which is going to change. It's going to change.
Maybe you say gonna change, but maybe that's worth investigating and testing right now.
Totally. And I agree with that completely. That's why I'm adopting.
We got to A/B test it.
The metaverse or whatever that's going to be what it is, right? But for now, like I'm like, not like I could tell you something for sure. Like my A/B test is like I have a business that I run completely remote right now, and I know like the littlest problems that we fall on or the littlest like oversights is because we're not in person with each other every day, going over these things. 100%.
Okay.
And so we've solved that.
But you're not doing it in the metaverse. You're doing it over Zoom.
No. I get that. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying there's oversights being happen because we can be in like a virtual chat all day, and that helps a lot.
Yeah.
But like you get off a Zoom call and then you're like doing your own thing. It's hard for you to like the collaboration has a lot of gaps when you're working remote with people. You know, like let's put it this way: like you and I in an office for 2 hours talking about the podcast, we'll get more done those 2 hours if we're really working and we're like working together than we will like in 2 weeks of meetings, right?
I don't know. I don't know. I think I might disagree with that.
Yeah, I think it's very true because it's just like the little things. Like, hey, did you talk to so and so about this? Oh, hey, by the way, I talked to our client about this. Just wanted to let you know I forgot about that.
Well, if you keep the meeting running in the background, I think it could act like it's not an actual meeting. It's I guess it's not a quote unquote meeting. It's more of we're in the same space together. Kind of
Metaverse is going to change that. What we do is we do Google Meet, as you know, but we just keep it on. We call it virtual chat. So we're like, hey, I'm in virtual. If anybody needs company while they're working, jump in there. That helps a lot because you're like working and then you're talking to each other, it builds camaraderie or whatever. And then like you're like, oh shoot, I forgot to tell Justin about this.
And it helps you stay on track because you know the other people who are around you are on track.
That's why
in the same virtual space as you. You know?
Exactly. So it isn't like you have to adapt to something like that, to virtual chat, to the metaverse. Because yeah, you're right. Because it does something when you're working side by side with somebody, or at least you're feeling like you are.
Because you also got to take into account the 20-minute drive it takes to get downtown. And the 20-minute drive back. That's 40 minutes. Is that 40 minutes contributed into like the less proficient or the less effective? Like maybe a Zoom call is less effective than actual in person, but what if it's only 40 minutes less effective? Then that makes it exactly equal. Yeah,
I think so. I think sometimes things will take weeks to get like there could have been certain things if we're working side by side with each other. And again, like I think there's a lot here. If we're like in a virtual chat for 8 hours straight, we're gonna get a lot of things done with one another.
For sure.
There's always gonna be like I also get a lot more done at the house being remote. You know, like my house is like it's a tight ship there. So there's going to be a hybrid, I think, of different things. And I think that's why, I don't know if you heard, who was it? Was it, is it Howard Schultz from Starbucks? I think so. He's like, I'm literally going to get on my knees and like, and beg you to come back to the office and work. That's what he was telling like a lot of his like headquarters.
Well, Elon
officials.
Musk was talking about it too.
Yeah,
you know, he was in all the headlines for saying that they can go pretend to work somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, when I get together, even for like recon specifically, when we're all together, the 3 or 4 of us are together, we get like 3 weeks worth of like shit we should have gotten done when we're just together, you know, together in one office. Boom, 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 boom.
You see, when I'm with someone in an office, or if I'm at a coffee shop and there's other people around me, I find it distracting. I find I get less work done. I need pure isolation. So if we can figure out what we need on a phone call and then get into isolation mode, I think that's best for me.
It's also
because I can always text you.
That's true, and it's also a little bit different too because a lot of your stuff is like editing, so you require less distractions as opposed to like, well, it depends too because you are client facing. But I was gonna say like if we're on a call with a client and there's like 17 things they gotta get done, and we're like, shoot, we can do this all now. Do we really need to push this back into the next time we meet them and be like, oh, we've gotten half of them done, or can we just get them done all right now together? But like you said, it depends on the industry and like the work that you're doing. Because like editing, you just need no distractions and you just need to be dialed into that and get it done.
Well, also learning a lot of my time, probably about at this point right now, about 60, 70, maybe even 80% of my time is learning. I'd probably say 30, 40%. Yeah, 30, 40% is actually implementing and actually doing and implementing what I'm learning, but most of the time I'm actually absorbing, and that takes concentration and focus. And then there's the editing, and then if I'm building a campaign, I don't want distractions. I'm also, this is my personality type. I would rather figure out something myself, even if it takes 4 times longer than asking someone a question, and that is a flaw and hopefully a benefit, hopefully something that's good too. But I know it's a flaw of mine because I will, if I have a client project, I know I can just ask them, hey, can you send me the logo? I will spend more time finding their logo on the internet myself, even finding a low resolution version of it. And then maybe, this is where it is a major flaw. Earlier this week, I literally rebuilt someone's logo just so I didn't have to ask them to send me their logo. I built it from fucking scratch, dude, in Illustrator. I was like, just so I didn't have to ask it, because it was super low res, and it was super low res everywhere. I was like, this dude doesn't even probably have one. But I could have just asked him, because what if he did?
Yeah.
And I would have saved myself 3 hours.
Yeah.
But I'm stubborn like that. It's like, the reason why I do this is because I don't want someone to know I'm weird like that. I don't want them to know when I'm working on their shit. It's like, I want to work it on my time, and for some reason I'm weird like that. It's like, I don't want people to know that, and I don't know why I don't want people to know that. It's just like, I don't know. It's a weird self-conscious thing. Yeah. And it's something I'm realizing now as I'm verbalizing it in the moment.
Yeah. Sometimes you just talk things out, and you got to understand who you are as a person, but also as a worker. Mm-hmm. You're a problem solver. So
yes,
that a lot of people don't have that. So like, problem solvers are usually good at science and math, because like, I mean, everything else is like memorization, right? Like you can memorize history, right? Mm-hmm. You don't have to necessarily solve for X in history, but in math
actually,
you do. I mean, you can, but
because a lot of history is up for debate, and you have to actually use science to figure out what's true and what's not.
But like, if you think about like just basic everything, like math by and large is like, it's exercising that problem solving muscle that people want to do. That's why some people don't like math versus not, because you have to like, it's a lot harder than just like, oh, I have to memorize ABC, like whatever the answer is to this question.
Yeah, I get the principle of what you're saying, for sure.
You're a problem solver is what I'm saying. That's why like a lot of engineers they like the isolation, because they have to like be alone in their thoughts and figure something out. Mm-hmm. And so like that can be a pro and a con, like you were just talking about. And it also means that you work better in different environments too. Mm-hmm. So yeah, maybe you working, say I get my mental health, social hour for 30 minutes, but then I got to work 4 hours straight in isolation. But I definitely think that some level of social interaction in your workspace helps build culture, and it helps with mental health too. So we have to and we're going to figure it out as a site. We've always figured things out, but we have to be able to marriage the two. The feeling that you are in person talking or collaborating with others, so you can build a culture and build off of other thoughts, has to be involved. More so than what we've been doing. Zoom can cut it, but it cuts it to a certain extent. We're not there yet.
Well, that's where I think the VR, actual virtual reality, like if you've ever played around, and actually I want you to get an Oculus as well too, because I actually want to experience what it's like having a meeting where we're in the same space and we can push a paper. I can literally push a virtual paper to you, and you can literally grab it and pick it up, and you can feel it in your hands virtually. Like, you're not feeling the actual paper, but it's giving you the sensation of the paper. It's like, and if it gives you the sensation enough to where it's indistinguishable, then it is indistinguishable, in my opinion. Like, it doesn't matter whether molecules or digits. If it gives you the same exact sensation that is indistinguishable, then it's the same thing.
Are we in the Matrix, Andrew?
Not yet. I couldn't call it. I am wearing Matrix underwear, though. Sheath Underwear, a sponsor of the show. Use the code COSBP20 to get 20% off.
Yeah, they're going to merge. Those two roles are totally going to merge, and that's so true. Like, in that feeling, like, again, especially when you're going to be able to, like, again, smell, taste things, like, hear things, like, it's going to be super interesting, and that's exciting times, man. Like, I think people, like, they're either like totally against it or totally like so much like I want to adopt it so much. I'm kind of like in the middle where I'm like, you gotta tread lightly and tread with caution, because this is also can be dangerous in the wrong hands, and it will happen. I
have a package coming out too, so we gotta start wrapping this up.
Okay.
It takes 15 minutes to get to my house.
I didn't even know it was one.
Yeah, we've been burning through like an hour and a half on the show already.
Oh shoot!
Yeah, well, we're an hour and 17 minutes.
Yeah, let's tie it up.
And they're actually coming from 1 to 2, so hopefully they don't get there by the time I am back. I was actually expecting to be there by like 1-ish, but
that's okay. Yeah, we've talked about everything we need to talk about, especially for the event. It's coming up July 16th and 17th at the Ranch Events Complex. Tickets are $10. You can get them at peoplestinyhousefestival.com/tickets. Hope to have everybody there. Kids are free. It's going to be exciting. Join us.
We'll talk to them, not me, dude.
Yeah, join us. You're the one nodding, okay? I guess I can nod to myself to the camera, but yeah, it should be exciting.
All right. Well, this has been the COS Business Podcast, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Did I say welcome back and introduce you?
Yeah.
Okay, good, because